Call this meeting to order. It's a building committee. It is Tuesday, May 8th, 2018, 5:30 PM. Number two, form a committee for a bond election. Mr. Kerman?
Mrs. Rendon, you want to present on the committee for possible bond election?
That's not the, that's the finance item. But the board members have it. On the bond committee, wanted to share with you, and you should have it on your PowerPoint presentation in your board book. Just what we're looking for is we're trying to set up a committee so that we can review the bond procedures. The first slide that you have is planning for capital improvements.
Mr. Rendon, are we able to display that on the screen?
They do. Peggy was working on this. If you give me a few minutes, we can load it up.
Did we go to number 4? No?
I guess we can go ahead and move forward, and the PowerPoint will show up when it's able to.
Peggy, I just emailed it to you.
Huh? Okay.
You want to skip? You want to go?
No, you can talk through it.
Okay. And I'll make some copies if y'all want a hard copy. This is the planning for capital improvement. Some of the key points is the first item that we should do is the demographic projections update, which we have as administration. We've looked at the items that the demographic, and that was part of when we had the public meeting where we were condensing and looking at the schools, what had vacancies, and that was part of the public meetings that we were having early on before the STEAM Academy and the repurposing of Landon has occurred. We also did a district-wide facility assessment, and that's where also administration looked around and said, what are facilities that we're in need of? We identified those. We looked at internal long-range needs assessment, and that was what we're going to do in the short term and what we could do in the long term, and we have established that. So now we're at the point of organizing a committee. In the organization of the committee, then that committee is going to be formed, is going to review what we have outlined as far as the district-wide facility assessment. We're going to turn it over to the committee, and then the committee will be making recommendations to present to the board as far as prioritizing between what's 1, 2, 3 down the line, as much money as funds that we can have in order to pass a bond. The board studies a recommendation. Then the board calls an bond election, and has to be 78 days prior to election day, which is the November the 6th general election. Once the board calls, we go into public meetings and town hall meetings, similar to what we did when we did the repurposing of the schools. Then we put it out in a bond election to approve by the voters on November the 6th. Then after that, the bonds are sold, and then we start the projects as far as going forward with the items that were recommended. The planning committee responsibilities, it'll be comprised of individuals from the community who represent the various interests of San Benito CISD. We're giving some potential is that each board member will choose 2 committee members to be on there. There's also a list that I've provided to the board members, which is a current list and previous strategic members and this has been provided. This list of individuals participated in the strategic plan when we had the meeting, so when we established the 5-year strategic plan. So that's just a guide to see if you want to go through it and look at, these are the individuals, and it comprised of community members, teachers, administrators, students. So that's just a guide if you want to use that. The administration staff and district consultants will aid in the committee and serve as a source of information. So as administrators, we will guide you in far as giving you details. It could be planned sites. We can go visit sites. We also will give you the area that we feel that we've done as far as that needs attention, so that you could, whoever's on the committee can look at it, analyze it, and then come back with what needs priority, and then work down. The committee will communicate effectively, strive to be objective, and maintain a district-level perspective at all times. They'll, like I said, they'll have access to the data, resources, anything you would need in order to reach the recommendations by a consensus to the committee. On that, then they will present to the board and make the recommendations to the board in which items for a potential bond issue. Those are kind of the guidelines. It'll be online. We can post it, or I can make some copies be provided. Like I said, it's a guide. This is the first talks. It is something that's coming pretty fast, because as you can see, the board needs to call an election, and we're going down this road of bond 78 days prior to the November election. Do y'all have any questions?
As far as the committee's concerned, are we going to, because I know there are options that we presented, especially when Mr. Traylor was here and gave the financial outlook and what possibly we can go out for without raising taxes. Are we going to provide alternative scenarios that the committee can consider, or is it something that they are going to draw up from scratch?
No, there is a there is a bond that's coming due, which it means due it's our last payment. So there's potential savings in that, since we're already paying off one of the bonds. Those pennies that we have been raising taxes, that we have been paying the bond, have been freed up. When we talked to Mr. Traylor and they came in, he gave us scenarios that by keeping the tax rate where we were, not changing it, so we're diverting the pennies that we paid off, using the same pennies. If we were to go with a 30-year note, we could go as high as $33 million for a bond. If we went 20 years, it was 26. And then there is another option that we don't have to go to the voters, but that is a little more expensive because it's a higher interest rate, and we're looking at around $22 million. So at the workshop, we will be presenting some items, and for those who want to stay, that are topics that Dr. Carmen has already presented, but we'll review, and that's at their fourth meeting today, the workshop. But that would be provided to the community members when we form it, to kind of give it. These are or they could come up with new ones. It might be something that that we need to address that we haven't looked at. So those are the scenarios. That is possible without raising what the tax rate is at this point. Now, of course, if you want, they want to go beyond the 33 million, it would be, that's what we can do with paying off the bond and keeping the rate the way we have it at this point.
And how much of a financial outlook are they going to have in front of them as they make their decisions, namely how much we have in the fund balance, how much would be responsible to spend along with the bond?
That's one of the things that we will provide all the information that is needed so that they can arrive at that. One is going to be access to our present financial statements or our audit, where we are. Anything that they feel that the committee needs as a whole to make it a decision, financially sound decision, we will provide to them and guide them. Ultimately, it's not us that was pushing it, it's what do they need to. We presently, because we are here and we see it all the time, roofs are a big thing. There's a lot of roofs that are neglected, and we need to, and it wouldn't make sense to do the inside when our top is, we need to work on it. But there's other things that we've heard that San Bernardino is in need. One is the fine arts. Is that what we're looking at? One is an aquatic center. Is that what it is? It's some improvements, just general. So we have a list that we've comprised, so we'll provide that. So we'll aid them in whatever they need to, information, financially or a facility assessment. And quotes of more or less what it looks like, because they can, the top of the line, or we can go with a smaller one,
Move over to number 4. Review and discuss on Dr. Garza's team academy renovations.
I think we're in agenda item 3.
Should discuss it.
No, it's
Back to 3, review and discuss on matters relating to the possible bond election, including timeline and other matters, incidents, and related thereto.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask Mr. Juan Aguilera, attorney with Escamilla and Ponick, to present some information to the board.
Thank you very much. My name is Juan Aguilera, and I work with the firm of Escamilla and Ponick, and I am what most people call is a bond attorney. I specialize and do primarily just finances for school districts, governmental entities. We represent cities, counties. We represent the state of Texas, the Texas Water Development Board, Texas Public Finance Authority. So whenever there's any type of financing, people see a bond attorney that show up and provides guidance for doing a financing. You have several people, and I heard Dusty Traylor's name mentioned. Mr. Traylor was here before, and his job is a financial advisor, and he will be able to, and has, provide you information on interest rates, payments, so forth. That's something that I do not do. All that our bond attorneys do is to provide guidance on the legal requirements for calling a bond election or for any type of financing that the district may want to consider. So it's important to have obviously your financial advisor, because you want to know how much it's going to cost you. But then you also want your bond attorney to be present and to guide you as to what steps are going to be needed. In this case, I understand that you're considering a bond election. You're only considering it at this time. It's important to be able to have a bond attorney that guides you through the election laws. The good news is that election laws for bond elections are about 90% the same as school board elections. So you guys are already experts on elections. There are just some few minor things and that require the consideration and the guidance from your bond attorney. So for one, as was mentioned, you need to call a bond election, and what I'm going to do is, if I may, this is a timeline that we have put together for all our clients for. Has already been mentioned that in order to call a bond election, you need to call a bond election 78 days prior to the actual election date. Bond elections, just like your school board elections, can only be held twice a year. Some school districts have board elections in November. Some school districts have elections in May. So the same thing with bond elections. It used to be in the old days, I've been doing this work for over 28 years, that a school district can call a bond election on any day. And that was as long as you met the requirement of the notice requirements. But now you're limited to those 2 days. All my clients, we've done a number of financings. We've done financings. Our highest financing was $515 million for San Antonio ISD. We just called another one last year for $450 million, but I also represent some school districts where we've done $1 million. So, and the rules, the same laws apply to the $450, the $500 million bond financing as it does for the $1 million financing. I tell all the clients and all the school districts that you as a board cannot by yourselves decide that you want to issue bonds. The only thing that you are, the state law, the state constitution allows you to do is to present the question or the proposition to be sent to the taxpayers and the voters of the district. So if you decide, and sometime the deadline for calling a bond election is Monday, August the 20th of this year. If you decide that that's going to be something you want to do, all you can do at that time is call the election, and then you then allow the voters of the district to tell you whether they want to allow you to move forward with an election or with issuing bonds or not. The timetable that I passed out, these are all dates in the red that are all drop dead dates, which means that, for example, the first one I stated, the August 20th Monday date that there is to call the election, we generally recommend that you can call the bond election a few days before the 20th. You don't want to be in a situation where you don't have a quorum and you're on the 20th, and if you don't have a quorum, you're going to have to wait till the following year to call a bond election. So the election, the law says at least 78 days prior, so that's the 78th day. Just like your board elections, you have early voting. Early voting will start 12 days before. On November, it's 17 days, and your May election was 12 days, and it's going to be in 4 days prior to the election. Bond elections are going to be a little bit different in that you will be having to post your bond order, and you'll have to place it in 3 different public places. All of these things is what a bond attorney will prepare. The bond election order will help you in any kind of communication that the district will have with the voters to inform them, and this is very important. The school district can only inform and provide factual information to taxpayers. You cannot, as a district, be able to tell people how to vote, whether it's for or against. The only thing you could be able to do is present factual information. And that's where the projects, your bond committee, then you can go out and talk, as been mentioned, to different groups, and you will talk about the different projects that you're considering and also the costs. And if you're going to go 30 years, if you're going to go 20 years, and so forth down the line. Those are the kind of things. The bond attorney would also work very closely with the district so that all communication that it has to be prepared, that you want to prepare to provide to the voters, that it's done in a legal matter. Again, as I mentioned, that it has to be done only in a factual matter. So that, for example, and this has already been decided by the Ethics Commission, one little statement of saying for the betterment of our children, that's been found to be violating the election laws. So these are the things that a bond attorney will come in and work with you. We don't decide what projects it is that you're going to make. We don't decide if you're going to go 30 years or not. We don't decide the amount of the bond issuance. All those decisions will be made by you as a board. The only thing that the attorneys and the bond attorneys do is to make sure that all the paperwork and all the legal documents will be done as required by law, so that way you can be able to move forward and not have to worry about somebody challenging you because there was a misstep along the way. Once you have a bond election, and the bond election is successful, your bond attorney prepares all the financing documents that then are used to sell bonds, and then those documents are sent over to the Attorney General's office, the State Attorney General's office, for their review, and once you receive their approval, then you could be able to move forward with the financing and receive your funds. So in a nutshell, that is what a bond attorney does, and also as I pointed out, the timeline, it's important, and I think people get comfort in knowing that it's almost like a regular bond election, school board election that are done more frequently. And I know most school districts do not call bond elections on an annual basis or don't do any financings. And this is something new, and you want to make sure that you have all the right guidance, all the consultants, whether it's a financial advisor or legal advisor, to help you in putting together the bond election. I'll be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
Maybe just mention a little bit, the reason that we're asking you specifically to visit with this board is based on your experience and your track record. I know you mentioned the range of bonds that you've dealt with over 28 years. Could you give the board an idea of how many bonds, maybe just in the last year roughly, you've worked with school districts?
Well, I think we were recently working on a proposal, and we represent 26 school districts, now 27. We just recently got hired and are very proud to say as co-bond counsel, working with another firm for Houston ISD. So But we've done, I personally have done over 50 bond elections. And it seems like that we used to do a lot more frequently in past years when the IFA, the Instructional Facilities Allotment Monies, was available. We saw huge number of districts go out and call it bond elections. And I found through the years, as I was telling you, that it's important because you're always going to have, it would be nice to have 100% of the people coming in supporting your efforts. And most people do. But there's always going to be the naysayers, always, always, always. And now we're starting to see in my experiences that the naysayers will come in and they'll challenge you on a specific issue, on a very small technicality that then will, it'll be an obstacle then for the overall thing. So that even if, for example, they're not successful, you know, they might claim and say, well, you didn't post this thing as according to the law. They'll do things like that. Well, that's where your attorney comes in and makes sure that it's posted on the days that it's required. But then once it makes the paper, once it's out there, then now you have to fight that battle, just trying to say, no, we did do it correctly, but a lot of times it's not only is it distracting, but a lot of times it's not helpful. I was trying to recall, I want to say that in the 50 some odd elections that I've personally have had done, I think our track record is only, I think I've only lost 3. And one of them was a tie. I never had seen that, but there was an actual tie. And that happened, and I don't know if y'all are Ben Bolt, Palito Blanco, I represent them. They're not too close, but they're close enough. So there's been some things out there, but it's interesting. All the elections are all the same. Guidance is very important because what it is that you represent to your taxpayers or the voters is what we call in a legal term is a contract with the voters. So we have to be very careful. I always recommend, we recommend that you don't go out and say a high school to be built at the corner of Main and 2nd Street. There's something going on right now with Comal ISD, because if you mention a specific area, and that is something that a person then says, that's what was represented to me, then you may have, the bond may pass, but then you might have an issue later on or some kind of a challenge because you went out and said it was going to be at that particular location. The other thing, I mean, in all my years of doing these bond elections, I remember, some of you, I know at least Mr. Vargas is too young to remember, but we used to do elementary school for $3 million. About $5 million was about the amount that you would spend on an elementary school. We did a lot of them here in this area in South Texas. Now, just recently we worked on a football stadium where the elevator to the press room was close to $1 million. So things have escalated. Thank God I'm not your financial advisor and I don't have to come in and deal with those kind of things. But those are issues that are out there and very important to make sure that all those things that you do are all done correctly, and then let the voters decide. Let them decide what they want to do. All you're going to do is just present the question to them and not have to be distracted with challenges. The other thing is that's important is that the Attorney General's office, their job in their review is to make sure that you then met all the requirements of law, all the notice requirements, all the publication requirements, all the information, all those things are things that they will review. So those are things that a bond attorney will make sure that everything is done correctly so that once you issue bonds, you're not going to have a problem with the Attorney General's office. And that way, once the voters have approved, and then you want to be able to move forward. And in my 28 years, thank God, I've never had the Attorney General's office come in and say that the bonds were not approved because there was some issue or some problem. There's been some challenges along the way, but it's the one that comes to mind, Nueces County. There was Banquete ISD, and they did an election where it was county-wide with all the different people voting from different areas. And Nueces County, I think they still do, and some districts do that, is that the county office publishes their own publication, their own notices. And all it said was bond election, Banquete ISD, and the dollar amount. That was all it said. One line. We had provided the notice, we had sent it to the school district. The school district thought that they were doing that, and they did not. So we had a battle, and we won. We were able to demonstrate to the Attorney General's office that even though we didn't follow the letter of the law and all the legal jargon that has to be required in the notice, there was sufficient notice that the people received, so Banquete ISD was able to issue their bonds. But so hopefully we won't get to that. San Antonio ISD had to have 2 publications, because the county, again, wants to do their own deal, but we went ahead and insisted that they also did a separate publication of a notice. So good. So you have the information on the timeline. I think right now the important one to keep in mind is that Monday, August the 20th. And again, I want to reemphasize that you as school board members, the only authority you have is just to call the election and let the voters decide what they want to do.
Thank you. Number 4, review and discuss on Dr. Garza STEAM Academy renovations.
Mr. Rendon?
Thank you, sir. This item is a recommendation to take to the board, is partial renovate the Dr. Garza, the STEAM Academy, and get it ready for the 2018, 2019. The proposal is for $95,581. It is from within the current budget, and this company is an approved vendor, and they're going to come in and do the hallway painting, some cabinetry, and refresh it so that we can open up for the STEAM Academy. This will start on June the 4th, and we have a projection that it will be completed within 42 days of the start, and that includes the weekends. So we're time sensitive, that we want to have this so that we can be able to start. We can't move the teachers that are going in there in until this is completed. So we're under a time frame project. Our current staff cannot do multiple areas. There's also other areas that need attention, such as the land room. So we're looking to contract out as a job order contract in order to get these jobs simultaneously and get it ready by July. So we would like for this to go as an agenda so we can approve.
I guess the question for Dr. Carmen, is this gonna in any way get in the way of Ms. Lambert with her preparations instructionally or operationally?
No, sir, it is not. We have been working very closely with Ms. Lambert. She has been a huge contributor to getting this quote here. As far as the millworking that she wanted done, you see some pictures here in the board book. As far as the colors, et cetera. She's also picked out the flooring for the main hallway. So no, sir, having this done or having this started at the beginning of June will not present any obstacle. We will still be able to do the staff development that we have planned to do. A fair amount of the instructional supplies have already been ordered and received. So no, this all fits within our timeline.
Dr. Carmen, I got a quick question. Is there potential additional construction there at the STEAM Academy, or is this pretty much it for this year, or are we looking for additional construction possibly in the near future?
For this year, this is the bulk of it. As I stated, we do have some flooring that we're going to do, but that's less than $20,000. Mrs. Rendon, don't make me a liar, less than $20,000.
For what, the flooring, sir?
The flooring,
17.
yes, that's $17,000. We will also be getting a quote for a tree that will go along with the campus. It's built inside the building, and we are looking for some things put out on the front that will show that it's a STEAM Academy, some metal types of statues. But none of those will be large or above the $50,000 threshold for the board to consider. So this is the bulk of the construction work for that campus.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Agenda item? Okay.
Thank you.
Number 5, review and discuss on San Benito High School renovations.
This
Mrs.
is-
Rendon, do you or Mr. Garcia want to talk about this?
I can start it off, and if you have any questions, we can direct it to him. This is another project that is also to commence on June the 4th. This is, we're looking at renovating the high school that has not been renovated for, I'm going to say 30-plus years, or maybe since I've been there, since I went there. We would like to start off slowly right now, doing the A, B wing, and the main office. And it consists of the flooring, new flooring down the hallways in the classrooms, painting the 2x2 ceiling grid, and refurbishing the doors or resanding them, and start moving what we want to do is start moving slowly, start going down and renovating. The office area in the front, some of you all have been there, it needs some updating, so it's paint. This is an item that I do not have it within the budget, and this would be Noble Construction awarding the contract to Noble Construction, which is a job order contract, and also the flooring. So the flooring does have to come to the board because it is over 50,000. I presented their proposal. Mr. Garcia's here for additional questions that he might ask. Do you all want?
I think you alluded to it, so this is the first of many phases until we complete the entire high school.
Now, if this is something that we want to consider, like if in the bond, then we could do it all kind of in the way, but it also 42 days. So we have a limited time span that we can do. We're also in conjunction doing the electrical panel in the same month. So this is why we have to do job order contract, because there's multiple jobs that are occurring during a short span, and our staff cannot be able to, they concentrate on that and get the upkeep of just the regular summer work.
So, just wing A and B, and that's it?
Right now
None of
we
the
have-
other halls are gonna be touched?
Right now, it's A and B and the main,
I really was looking forward to the math hall be retouched. The math hall is a mess, completely a mess.
we can
So
look at that.
those rooms are not even gonna be touched at all whatsoever, not even painted or anything?
Mr. Garcia, I'm not sure, the contract is with Noble Construction, they didn't give it. We can go out and see what it would take, or
My gosh,
time-wise.
just paint the rooms. They're horrible. If y'all haven't been down that hall, you need to go down that hall. They are horrible.
We can talk about not a full refresh, but the summer. There is no kids we're not having summer school
Right,
there. So we
right.
have the time, we have some more time dedicated to that campus that we normally have.
Right.
So,
Oh my gosh, you should, please go check to see how much it would cost to paint the rooms. At least paint them, because they're nasty looking.
Ms. Rendon, I've got a
Yes.
question regarding the office area as per scope. I noticed that y'all are demolishing and removing ceilings, but I noticed that you have like a grid and rubber base. Now, are y'all restructuring the framing inside the offices? Are y'all restructuring that, Dr. Carmen?
I think
Or is it gonna stay the same?
the grid, I think we're turning to 2x2 and getting it prepared so that when we do have an LED project, that we can use the panels and be more efficient. So they're changing the grid area, which is those little rubber, the ceiling, so that they can come back and when we're approved the LED district-wide project, it's already set to be more efficient.
So I guess it's fair to assume that no structure's gonna be demolished at all?
That I know of, no, sir. It's
Okay.
more paint and refresh and
And this is an item, I think that this is something that should be brought up in respect to onto the office area. I know that there was some dialogue in past meetings regarding the repurposing the office spaces and moving for example, counselors to certain locations, principals in different areas and whatnot, to decentralize the office versus having everyone there in one location. Is that going to happen anytime soon?
That's not the scope of this project. This project is simply to redo the ceiling, the walls, and the flooring in these areas. So whether we move counselors or assistant principals out to offices within the building, that's not part of this project. That decision can still be made and go forward with the input of the new principal that we'll be hiring, but that's not the scope of this project.
And I think some APs are decentralized already, right? In that math hall you have Ava and, yeah. I had two questions. One was, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you presented that list originally relative to our bonds and just kind of a wish list, I saw that we had a lot of high school projects in there. Is this the beginning of attacking that list?
Yes, sir. This is just a portion. We would love to be able to come in and renovate the entire high school this summer. Until we have a good idea of what we will put back into our fund balance at the end of the school year, and/or have a bond consideration. We're trying to be reasonable with how much money we're spending. And two, time-wise. We don't want to get into a time crunch to where they're trying to finish 5 wings instead of the 2 and still be working on it in August. We want a project that's small enough in scope that we can be done and out of there before we come back and have to use it as a school building.
Okay, thank you. And I guess this question is for Mr. Garcia. Do we have, I guess in terms when summertime comes around, usually maintenance uses that opportunity to do touch-ups and of course hallways, renovations, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a plan in place? Because to Ms. Garcia's question, if there's just basic paint that needs to be done, is that part of an assessment already that you do on a yearly basis?
We have several schools that need to be actually painted. La Encantada is on our list of getting the whole school painted. We're getting some custodians that are going to help out from some of the campuses that were 12-month custodians was actually paid. There were actually 10-month custodians but paid for 12, so we got several men and women there that'll help. We also have Cash has been painted. We're going to go to head down, and we have to paint over 300 and some odd walls where the white boards were removed. And the smaller boards that Lee put on there, the projected boards that were smaller. So all those walls throughout the whole district have to be painted because they have an adhesive on there that has to be scraped off, and then the whole wall will have to be painted. We don't want to just touch it up. And of course, if the room needs more work, and a lot of those rooms are there at the high school also. So there's over 350, I imagine, boards that were replaced, so we're gonna have to go back to every one of those rooms and paint. Plus, we have all the land room reconstruction that we need to do there, offices, tape and float walls, divide everything up to allow all the other parts of the district that are gonna end up there. So we have our hands full. We're gonna have a very busy summer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I will add to that, Mr. Rondon, you and Mrs. Gonzalez have put out, or are putting out an RFQ or RFP for contractors to include someone that can do painting in case the workload is larger than what our current staff can take care of. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're looking to put an RFP for small construction, for carpentry, for those kind of manual trades, painting. And that is just because we have multiple pros and we have one crew. So in cases like that time frame, we need to get in and get out and do it. So we're thinking of putting that out for local vendors, to subcontract those out.
If I may, just wanted to point something out. We do this for all school districts or for our clients. If you're spending some money out of your fund balance, there's something that federal tax law requires. There's a way for the district to be able to reimburse yourself from bond proceeds in the future. And it's a real simple resolution that we can prepare. It's a 3-page resolution. And all you're saying is that you may want to reimburse yourself. Now, it could be that you have a successful bond election, there might be some money left over or something. You want to reimburse the fund balance with those funds. If you have a reimbursement resolution in place, then you could be able to do that. The law, federal tax law says that as long as the resolution is in place, 60 days after an expenditure has been made. So if you're getting ready to make expenditures, I can prepare that resolution, just send it over to Dr. Carmen, and you can just, again, pass it, it's on record. You decide, I don't want to reimburse myself, that's fine, you don't have to do anything. But if you do, and if there's some monies left over or something, then you can be able to come in and reimburse yourself, and I'm happy to do that.
Great, thank you for that.
Item agenda. Okay. Go number 6, review and discuss the purchase of network hardware and service for relocation of the district's network operations center.
Yeah. Ms. Peña, you want to present on this, please?
Good evening, everyone. As you all know, we're going to be relocating to Landrum as well, the entire technology department. As part of that recommendation, or that relocation, we are recommending that we move our network operations center over to that area so that we can be close to it for support purposes and to provide a centralized location for the district as well.
No questions?
Thank you.
Yeah. And number 7, committee concerns. I don't have it here in this one. Let me have it. Which one? No, they gave me this. Excuse me, number 7, review and discuss the 5 Elmo County ovens for Riverside Middle School, Berta Cavazza Middle School, Fred Booth Elementary, Dr. Cash Elementary, SB Veterans Memorial Academy.
Ms. Landrum, would you like to present on these? There she is.
Good evening. Yes, I'm recommending the purchase of 5 combi ovens to replace either equipment that is not functioning well, steamers, old steamers that we have in the schools, or those that just need added equipment. And this particular piece of equipment is very efficient. It is a combination convection oven and steamer. We do have them in our other schools. We've been adding them, and it's improved efficiency and quality of products. So we are trying to upgrade equipment in our schools as we go along. Okay. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this will come out of the Child and Nutrition?
It is
Okay.
funded by Child Nutrition, and we
Perfect.
did go out and get quotes from 3 co-op approved vendors. Okay.
Item agenda. Number 8. Committee concerns.
Yes, one, actually, just a clarification, Dr. Carmen, could you provide us with a list of programs that will be relocating to Landrum? So we get an idea of who's moving and who's not?
You mean just rattle it off, or do you want me to give you a printed list? So we know PRC, Gateway, Technology, PEAMS, Print Shop, Family Community Engagement, After School Program, Federal Programs and Migrant. Who did I miss? Our nurse coordinator as well will be there.
Superintendent?
Superintendent will not be there.
You said PRC, PEAMS, Gateway, after-school program, federal program, migrant, and North coordinator? Federal. Oh, and federal,
FACE and the nurse coordinator, nursing coordinator. And Print Shop.
Oh, and print shop.
Yes. And I can send the board a map that has the rooms designated, who's going to be in them,
9 programs?
unless I forgot someone, but yes, sir. But I can send a map that, a floor plan that has all of our departments that will be there. I can send it to every member of the board. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Adjournment at 6:17.